Alright, there's still quite a few pay-per-views I need to cover in order to fully complete Reliving the War. I only started covering pay-per-views since Survivor Series 96, so today I decided to stick with the WWF, stick to 96, and look at the February In Your House show, the event after the Royal Rumble but before WrestleMania XII. Big Daddy Cool Diesel has a title opportunity against Bret Hart. Diesel's had some issues with The Undertaker heading into this pay-per-view, and keep in mind also that Bret took the championship away from Diesel at Survivor Series just a few months prior. The Hitman and Big Diesel are going to get locked inside a steel cage, and whoever can escape first will leave In Your House as WWF champion. The date is February 18th, the place is the Louisville Gardens in Kentucky. 5,500 are in the building, 150,000 have bought the show on pay-per-view. Let's press play and let's see what happened. What a way to kick off this show. We have Razor Ramon taking on the 1-2-3 Kid. In any normal circumstance, this would have the potential to steal the show, until you remember that this match is a crybaby match. What is a crybaby match, you ask? Well, the loser of this match gets dressed up as a baby. There you are, and folks say Vince was a creative genius. Kid had turned on Razor a few months prior and even cost him his Intercontinental title at the Royal Rumble. 2 weeks ago on Superstars, Kid showed up with a stroller and a bottle. He used them to attack Ramon, thus we get the stipulation for this match. Razor gets a great reception as he makes his entrance, and he looks every bit a superstar, it has to be said. Kid makes his way down to the ring accompanied by Ted DiBiase, and he's bringing that same stroller with him from a few weeks ago. He also has a Razor Ramon teddy bear, which he delights in showing to the bad guy. The two men slap each other in the face to kick the match off, but Razor runs the Kid over with a shoulder block before sending him over the top rope to the floor. Kid's able to hang Ramon over the top rope before coming back inside with a springboard clothesline. He remains in control by laying in a series of kicks in the corner before using the same tactic in the middle of the ring as Ramon goes down from a spinning heel kick. A loud Razor chant goes up, much to the annoyance of the 1-2-3 Kid, and it seems to fire Ramon up as he lands a few chops in the corner before hip tossing his opponent across the ring. Razor hits his signature fallaway slam before calling for the edge, but Waltman's able to wriggle free. He does end up getting dropped off the apron by a Razor right hand though. Meanwhile, DiBiase grabs a handful of baby powder and throws it directly into Razor's eyes in front of the referee. Nice work, lads. Waltman connects with a missile dropkick to a visually impaired Ramon for a 2 count before dropping the leg brother. Kid heads up top again and scores with a big splash, which again only gets a 2. He then pops on a sleeper in an attempt to make Razor go night-night, and even though it gets broken up quite a few times, Kid continues to go back to the hold until Razor starts to fade away. It's a bit of a shame as the action was really solid before it came to a screeching halt with this sleeper. The move stays in for an absolute ice age, unfortunately. The crowd chant for Razor, which gives him the strength to fight out, and Kids 1, 2 and 3 all get smashed on the top rope. When both men get back to their feet, Razor gains control with a series of right hands before setting Kid up on the top rope. A back elbow puts Ramon down and Waltman connects with a crossbody, but Razor rolls through for a near fall. Kid gets placed on the ropes again and Razor wrecks his opponent with a fallaway slam from the second rope. He signals for the edge once again, but DiBiase distracts the bad guy and Kid grabs a handful of baby powder. This plan backfires as Ramon kicks the powder into Kid's face. Razor's finally able to make the Kid walk the Razor's edge as Ramon hits his finishing move, but he picks the Kid up at 2, instead choosing to nail Waltman with his second Razor's edge before putting him down for the 3 count. After the bout, the stipulations adhered to as Razor gives the 1-2-3 Kid his evening feed. But before he can put the diaper on, Ted DiBiase rightfully tries to put a stop to this nonsense. Unfortunately, he gets a face full of powder for his troubles. No, not that sort of powder. Shawn Michaels isn't on until later. Kid gets the diaper put on him, and that's the end of that chapter. A fine match between these two, as you would expect. I'm just not a fan of the endless sleeper hold and the stipulation in general. Up next we have Stinkin' Rich versus Just Plain Stinkin' as the Connecticut Blue Blood Hunter Hearst Helmsley takes on your friendly neighbourhood refuse disposal officer Duke Droese. Helmsley's accompanied down to the ring by Elizabeth Hilden, and a quick Google search tells me that she's a former adult model. So there you go, lads and lasses, take that information and don't do anything I wouldn't do. It's still so weird going back and seeing this incarnation of Helmsley considering where we are in the Reliving the War timeline, but never mind that because my boy and yours, Todd Pettengill, is standing backstage with the dumpster. Duke's sporting a rather dapper new hairdo, and Duke says he's going to take Hunter out like yesterday's garbage. We then see a recap from 3 weeks ago on Superstars where Hunter attacked Droese from behind and cut the hair of the Trashman. No, not Danny DeVito. Droese makes a beeline for the ring and the two men slug it out with the dumpster getting the better of the exchange. He lays in a few more shots in the corner before throwing Helmsley across the ring by his luscious locks. Hunter then gets sent upside down in the corner before getting dropped to the mat with a gorilla press slam. The future King of Kings begs off as Droese takes off his weight belt and Hunter gets whacked with it before taking a few kicks. The dumpster stays in control with a big boot and a slap across the face before going for some mounted punches, but Helmsley's able to drop Droese on the top turnbuckle to escape. In the meantime, Jerry Lawler's cornered an innocent woman as he asks Miss Elizabeth her thoughts on the match. She gets a few words out before Hunter goes for the pedigree. It gets countered with an inverted atomic drop, but Droese gets dumped, see what I did there, over the top rope when he tries to follow up. Hunter sends Duke into the ring steps on the outside as Liz looks on with delight. And back in the ring, Hunter keeps the advantage with a few uppercuts before dropping a knee across Droese's face. Speaking of knees, Hunter connects with his tribute to Harley Race as he stays in control of the match, but a foot to the face staggers the Blue Blood and both men go down following a double clothesline. The two get to their feet and Helmsley's sent down again, this time with a spinebuster and one more time with a back body drop. Droese hits a power slam before declaring that it's time to take out the trash. Duke then delivers the trash compactor, but he doesn't go for the cover. Instead, he heads outside to grab his trash can, but the referee puts a stop to that, all while Hunter grabs the lid of the trash can and he proceeds to wallop Duke with it over the head. He makes the cover and as per usual, the upper classes cheat to exploit the normal everyday people as Helmsley picks up the victory. A perfectly serviceable match and to be honest, Droese looked a lot better than I thought he would, so fair play to him. You kind of forget that some of these new generation guys weren't all that bad in the ring thanks to the echo chamber we now live in, especially when it comes to sentiment surrounding mid-90s WWF. Either way, Helmsley leaves with a win under his no doubt unnecessarily expensive belt here at In Your House 6. Yokozuna, once a proud member of Camp Cornette, was berated and embarrassed by GMZ himself on Raw for putting on less than stellar performances in the ring. Big Yoko went after Cornette, he was then attacked by the Bulldog and Owen, so the big man's looking for some revenge next as he faces the British Bulldog in a one-on-one match. This was during Yokozuna's rough spell in the WWF. His weight had become a serious issue, and this is one of those matches where you notice how bad things had gotten. Before we get started though, Yokozuna says he's tired of living in Jim Cornette's shadow, he's sick of Jim's hot dogging, and he's sick of Cornette getting all the money. As for the British Bulldog, well, Davey's just in the wrong place at the wrong time. The match begins with Davey taking a backdrop a bit too much to one side, and this gets followed up with a few clotheslines. The big man then misses an elbow drop, and as is typical in Yokozuna matches, his opponent's going to try to wear him down with punches, kicks and clotheslines. The third clothesline puts Yoko down to the canvas, and hometown hero Jim Cornette's able to get in a cheap shot when the big man gets brought to the ropes. Yokozuna fights back, he pulls off a big corner splash, and Davey ends up in position for the banzai drop. Cornette helps Bulldog get out of the ring and Yokozuna soon follows, but he ends up running into the ring post and this puts Bulldog back in the driver's seat. A jumping forearm attack puts Yokozuna back to the mat. Davey tries this again, but it doesn't go too well, and already Yokozuna looks absolutely spent and he looks like he's ready to go home. More clotheslines from Bulldog, Yoko stays on his feet this time. We see a big Samoan drop that gets a great reaction from the audience, and this gets followed up with a belly-to-belly suplex. The match ends rather unceremoniously when Jim Cornette gets in the ring to hit Yokozuna with his tennis racket. It's the kind of match ending that really pisses you off because it's so uninspired. But the good news is Yokozuna didn't feel a thing, and that means the Louisville Slugger's gonna feel the wrath of his former client. Luckily for Jim, Vader shows up, and Vader launches an attack on Yokozuna that involves Big Yoko getting handcuffed to the corner. It looks like Yokozuna doesn't want to sell anything as he does a pretty good job at keeping his attackers at bay, but eventually it becomes too much and officials have to run down to get a little order. This was all going to set up a Yokozuna vs Vader match at WrestleMania. The match gets officially announced later on, and the WWF even made graphics for the big showdown. However, due to Yokozuna's poor performances and due to his weight issues, the WWF changed this to a 6-man tag opening match that also featured Bulldog, Owen Hart, Jake Roberts and Ahmed Johnson. The match here at In Your House was pretty terrible. The Samoan drop and the belly-to-belly suplex were highlights, but nothing else was remotely good about it. Shawn Michaels puts his WWF title opportunity at WrestleMania on the line next in a match against Owen Hart. Owen was the guy who put Shawn on the bench just before the 1996 Royal Rumble, so not only is Shawn fighting to keep his WrestleMania spot, he's also looking for some retribution after what Owen did to him in November 95. This one has the potential to steal the show. HBK's all fired up as he says he'll be kicking it with a click tonight. And the WWF set up a pretty cool entrance for Shawn here where he dances on top of the house set up at the entranceway. It takes forever for the planned pyro to go off and you can see Shawn shouting at someone before the fireworks do eventually go off. But still a pretty cool entrance that shows us how much McMahon and the WWF wanted to push Shawn during this time period. The fans absolutely adored him during the first half of 1996. Michaels tosses Owen out of the ring so he can continue his entrance. The lights dim down and we get more pyro. Michaels and his fans dance along to his entrance song, and you'd think HBK already won the match the way he's getting on here. Owen Hart isn't a man you want to overlook, Mr. Heartbreak Kid. Owen gets back in the ring, the two shove each other before locking up. Michaels wants to pander a little to the audience, so he slides under Owen's legs and he leaves the ring to greet his adoring fans. He kisses children, he kisses women in the audience. Wrestling seems to be the last thing on Shawn's mind, and again he's definitely overlooking the King of Hearts. He eventually returns to the ring, and this time Owen slides under his opponent's legs before leaving the ring. Not too many fans want to give Owen a high five, so Shawn goes upstairs for a crossbody to the outside. When Owen gets in the ring, he ends up taking a top rope double axe handle, and Shawn continues messing with Owen by tripping him up and walking along his back. Owen gets up, he finds himself in a headlock. Shawn gets accused of hair pulling by the referee, and so he releases the hold for a split second only to lock it in again. When Hebner turns his back, Shawn blatantly pulls at Owen's hair. And gotta say, this is good stuff. Good stuff that you don't really see in pro wrestling nowadays. Hip toss from Owen, kick from HBK, the two kept up at the exact same time, and the action continues with an HBK Frankensteiner. Another Irish whip sequence ends with a beautiful belly-to-belly from Owen Hart, and the King of Hearts follows up with a backbreaker and a neckbreaker before looking for a sharpshooter. HBK manages to kick Owen away, but Owen stays on his opponent. We go to the mat for a brief while so both competitors can catch their breath. The match resumes with a swift knee to the midsection from Owen. The Rocket then applies a good old-fashioned chinlock for maximum damage, and how Shawn didn't top out here, I'll never know. A spinning wheel kick sends Shawn out of the ring, but Owen ends up getting dumped out after a suplex from the apron. Shawn tries another aerial attack to the outside, but Owen catches him for a power slam. Fantastic stuff here from Owen Hart. Back in the ring, Shawn goes down after a missile dropkick. A whip to the corner leads to Michaels covering Owen, but it doesn't end the match. Owen whips HBK again, and this time the results are much better. And the King of Hearts almost decapitates his opponent with a charging clothesline. This one's been good so far, and it's the kind of match that makes me glad I went back to review these older shows. We also put up with some nonsense during these older shows, so it's nice to find good stuff within the mountains of shit, you know? Owen locks in the sharpshooter and a long struggle follows. Eventually, Michaels makes it to the ropes, but Owen thinks he's won the match. Hebner says it's not over yet, so Owen slams his opponent before blowing his nose all over the Heartbreak Kid. Lovely. Shawn then takes an enziguri, the move that put him on the bench at the end of 1995. He falls out of the ring as the commentators sell how severe and dangerous the enziguri is, especially to someone healing from a head injury just like HBK. And Owen could have won right here via countout, but instead he wanted to pin Shawn Michaels. HBK kicks out of Owen's cover. It was a silly move on Owen's behalf to go for the pin. It was also a silly move to try a corner attack, seeing as Owen gets his balls smashed on the middle rope. And now we begin the heroic comeback as HBK delivers his signature flying forearm, not once, but twice. HBK delivers his elbow drop, he knocks Cornette off the apron. Shawn warms up the band, but he misses sweet chin music. Owen tries one more time for the enziguri, but Shawn ducks it, and the match ends with Shawn performing the super kick for the 1-2-3. Shawn's going to WrestleMania, he's one step closer to the WWF Championship, and the match he and Owen put on here was pretty damn good. He brings a young fan into the ring to celebrate, something that Bret Hart actually took exception to, which I say is fucking ridiculous even as a Bret Hart fan. But Bret will have the chance to stop all this singing and dancing if he can beat Diesel in our next matchup. If Bret wins, it'll be the Hitman versus the Heartbreak Kid at WrestleMania XII. Before we look at our main event, and to give the crew some time to set up the steel cage, we hear from the WWF's acting president, Roddy Piper. He begins his promo by saying he doesn't think Michael Jackson's innocent, so thanks for your opinion, Hot Rod. Piper confirms that Shawn Michaels is the #1 contender for the WWF title, something we already know. He then calls Yokozuna dumb for getting himself handcuffed earlier. He calls Vader inbred because he's from the Rocky Mountains. Jesus. And Piper makes the Vader vs Yokozuna WrestleMania match official before Jim Cornette and Clarence Mason make a brief appearance. Cornette says the fans, the WWF and Roddy Piper fear Vader. The reason why this WrestleMania match is getting booked is because the WWF want Vader removed from the company for good. And Piper says Cornette's going to be left all alone with Yokozuna if Vader loses his match at WrestleMania. Roddy then gropes Cornette's ass because I don't know. And I think, thankfully, the cage is now set up, so let's check out our main event. The cage has been set up tonight to stop all outside interference. Diesel and The Undertaker have been at each other's throats, and Diesel made the mistake of interfering in a Bret vs Taker match at last month's Royal Rumble pay-per-view. So the WWF are hoping that the steel cage will stop any shenanigans. This match is quite important too when studying the Monday Night War, seeing as it was the straw that broke the camel's back in regards to Kevin Nash leaving the WWF for WCW, but more on that a bit later on. The bell rings, Bret begins as the aggressor, but a few clubbing blows to the back keeps Bret at bay and the Hitman's already in trouble. Shots in the corner from Big Daddy Cool get followed up with Diesel screaming, "It's going to be a long night" in Bret's face, and Diesel chokes Bret with his big boot as the challenger continues to look good. The cage makes a huge clanging sound as Hart takes a corner Irish whip. The Hitman tries to fight back by working over Diesel's knee, but he's quickly shut down. Diesel then tries to use the cage to his advantage, but this was a mistake. And after Diesel gets his head rocked off the steel a few times, the champion begins looking a lot better. Bret thinks he's done enough and he tries to leave the cage. Big mistake, Hitman, big mistake. Diesel follows him up and Bret takes a few knee strikes while standing on the top rope. And Big D shows off some insane strength when ramming Bret's back into the cage over and over again. Diesel thinks he's done enough to win the match. He tells the referee to open the door, but not so fast, Big Daddy Cool, says Bret Hart as he shoves the top rope into Diesel's wee Daddy Cool. Sorry. The match continues with Bret's headbutt to the midsection. Both men make more failed attempts at leaving the cage before Bret accepts he's going to have to do a lot more work. So Hart gets laser focused on Diesel's left leg and knee. This was Bret's main tactic back at the 1995 Survivor Series, and unfortunately it's not nearly as effective here, because the big man shakes Hart off with a few forearm shots followed by a clothesline. We then see a sidewalk slam from Diesel. He misses a follow-up elbow drop. It's been very back and forth so far, and we have no idea who's going to win this thing. Bret tries to climb the cage just as Diesel goes for the door. Nash is way closer to winning the match, so Bret has no choice but to pull him back into the ring. More focus on the leg and knee gives Bret another chance to leave the cage, but Diesel wakes up and Hart gets thrown from way up top. After a bit more back and forth, Bret pulls off a middle rope bulldog, but once again he gets stopped from leaving the cage, this time with a back suplex. So we just go straight back to Bret attacking the knee, and yeah, I can't say I think too much of this match so far. I mean, Bret's strategy is a sound one, but things are getting a little bit repetitive here. Things do get a bit more spicy when Bret takes his famous sternum first turnbuckle bump. The cage makes that loud clanging noise again, and it makes the bump look even more dangerous. Diesel thinks he has a great chance now as he lays in a few more clubbing blows to Bret's back, and we see some classic Kevin Nash corner offense before Bret once again goes for the left knee. Hart then tries to climb the cage one more time, and in fairness he almost makes it out, but Diesel grabs him by the hair and the match continues on. Bret gets brought down, he gets his face slammed into the cage. Diesel taunts the audience and he's got a smirk on his face as the crowd give him a mixed reaction. And Bret takes another turnbuckle bump chest first. This time the impact didn't seem as dangerous though. We see Diesel's leapfrog teabag attack, the big man looks for snake eyes, Bret counters and Diesel gets sent into the cage. Bret goes for the sharpshooter but it gets stopped with a thumb to the eye. Quite surprisingly, a loud Diesel chant breaks out in the audience. Some are still chanting Bret's name, but the Diesel chant is much louder. The crowd still cheers for Bret's Russian leg sweep though, and they cheer again when Bret delivers an elbow drop from the very top rope. The second rope elbow's dangerous enough, but a top rope elbow drop? Fuck me. Bret tries to escape, but he gets his little hitman smashed into pieces not once but twice. And this, ladies and gents, is where our match ends. Diesel makes his way to the cage door, Bret lunges at him but Kevin kicks Bret away. It looks like Diesel's going to main event WrestleMania, but then The Undertaker appears from under the canvas and he grabs Big Daddy Cool. Diesel frantically tries to get away, but it's no use. He goes under the ring along with the Phenom, and Bret climbs out of the cage to win the match. Once Bret's escaped and once the match is ended, Diesel re-emerges from under the ring. The Undertaker follows and it looks like Big Kev's seen a ghost. Nash climbs out of the cage, he's got a very concerned look on his face, and the show ends with The Undertaker taunting Diesel from the top of the cage while Nash heads back up the ramp. All in all, the match itself was absolutely nothing compared to Bret vs Diesel at Survivor Series 95, and it really felt like the two had no direction at all and no planning went into the bout. But the ending was quite memorable and it would set up an Undertaker vs Diesel showdown at WrestleMania. Bret Hart, meanwhile, is going to go into WrestleMania to face Shawn Michaels in the main event. As mentioned earlier, this cage match against Bret Hart was what made Kevin Nash agree to do business with WCW again. It wasn't the sole reason, he already knew how much Razor Ramon was getting by jumping ship, but after this cage match, Diesel pretty much made his mind up about leaving the company, and he put it down to being frustrated during a creative meeting surrounding this main event. Here's what Kev had to say.
The one specific incident that assured me that I was not going to renew my contract was the In Your House Louisville, where I wrestled Bret, and we were all in a room, and we're going over it, and Bret refuses to take my finish. Like, he won't be beat. And I'm like, dude, I'm going to get pulled in, you're just going to climb out, it's not going to hurt you. Oh, because people will have the feeling that I was beat. I'm like, he said, well, that doesn't do anything for me. And Taker, who never says anything, never raises his voice, is always that really kind of reason, the voice of reason, fucking jolts up out of his chair. He goes, motherfucker, not everything is about you. Like, this helps make our fucking match mean more Mania. Makes our reel before our match mean something more. And they threw it around, and we got there, and the day of, Vince made the call that no, he's not going to take the power bomb.
What Kevin said, I think, makes perfect sense. It really should have looked like Diesel had a clear win before Taker showed up, and the jackknife would have made it look a lot more convincing. Bret already knew he was going to go to the WrestleMania main event, so it kinda sucks that Bret didn't want to make Kevin Taker's match mean a bit more, And again, I say that as a huge Bret Hart fan. Nash approached Razor after the match. He told him to phone Eric Bischoff and tell him that Diesel's leaving the WWF and have a spot warmed up for him in Atlanta. And well, the rest is history. It makes you wonder if Bret taking the jackknife could have completely stopped the whole NWO thing from happening, but yeah, that's kinda reaching too, and maybe Kev was always gonna leave. By the sounds of things, he was looking a way out anyway. But that was In Your House 6. Check out Owen vs Shawn and Kid vs Razor. The rest, not so great. I wish I could say Diesel vs Bret was good, but look at Royal Rumble 95 or Survivor Series 95 if you want to see these two go to war. Thank you for watching, folks, and please take care.